think we should get started.
Yeah, I guess we should.
So we'll go through, there's a bit of a change in the title. I think on the session it was Introduction to OpenStack for VMware Administrators. This is pretty much similar content, but it covers a bigger arch. We'll try to inform you about everything that you need to know about OpenStack plus VMware, including things which are relevant to VMware administrators or future OpenStack administrators. So taking you through this presentation will be myself, Arvind Soni. I work as a product manager for OpenStack here at VMware. And with me is Scott Lowe, who pretty much probably most of you know, but Scott, a few words for describing yourself.
Sure. So thank you all for coming. We appreciate you taking some time this afternoon to join us for this session. My name is Scott Lowe. I work in the Network and Security Business Unit, the NSBU. That's our team responsible for NSX. And my particular area of focus with regards to NSX is open source related projects, including OpenStack. So I spend a lot of time working with OpenStack and inside the OpenStack community. And that's why I'm here to share with you some of this information. Plus, as Arvind mentioned, I have a rich history with the VMware community, and a lot of you know me from books and conferences, that sort of thing. So it's helpful for me to be able to share with you guys what we're doing with OpenStack and why it's important for vSphere administrators.
Okay, sounds good. So the game plan is simple. We start with a legal disclaimer. This thing is in private beta, so everything we claim here is subject to change. With that, since I'm the product manager, I know what's coming in, what is not going to change, so we can feel confident in sharing this information. We'll start with VMware's overall mission. As a company, where VMware is going, what is our mission particularly, and where does OpenStack fit in with that, so that it gives you a good strategic sense of why VMware is interested in OpenStack or where OpenStack brings value to VMware. So VMware's mission is around software-defined data center. We want to make sure the same agility that you got with virtualization of compute, you want to take that to your network, you want to take that to your storage, and make the whole infrastructure elastic and agile and software defined, right? Why do we want to do that? Because we have seen through the hypervisor journey that you can save a lot of money when you are agile, when you are software defined, and you can reach your time to value and business goals much faster. So it helps you be more productive, improves your top line, and saves you more money, improves your bottom line. So software-defined data center is a fundamental belief of VMware across our DNA, across every groups, across every session that you have seen. Software-defined data center is the defining principle.
Yeah, Arvind, before you progress, I think it's important to point out that, in particular this slide, right, it's great to stand up here and talk about technology, but in the end, we always have to connect that technology with something that is a business goal, and here they call it an IT outcome, but something that the business is trying to achieve, right? As IT professionals, we have to remember that we're in IT to support what it is that our businesses are doing, whether it's making widgets or creating software or researching drugs to help improve the health and lives of people around the world, whatever that is. IT exists to help support that. So when we talk about why we feel the software-defined data center is better, it's because it's helping you achieve some sort of measurable goal for the benefit of the business. Whether it's reducing capex, reducing opex, achieving disaster recovery, making widgets cheaper and faster to make, whatever the case may be. Right? It's always about attaching that to a business outcome. And as we talk about what we're doing relative to OpenStack, I want you guys to remember that this is about delivering solutions to the business and helping them achieve what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, well, that's an excellent point. It's not a technology for the heck of fun, and that's also good, but this is really driven by what your businesses can achieve out of any of our technologies, and including OpenStack, as we'll see in a bit. So where does OpenStack fit in, right? We have established as one of the market leaders for your traditional applications, not necessarily in the sense that these are obsolete or old, but in the sense that these have special requirements around resiliency, high availability, security. So these are your Exchange, SAP, Oracles of the world that we pretty much own and run on VMware infrastructure, and you guys are all familiar running these applications. But increasingly over time, we are seeing there are these modern set of applications. Poster child examples would be Dropbox, Netflix. These are different from these traditional applications in the sense they are more scale out. They interact much more closely with the infrastructure. They consume infrastructure much more programmatically, right? So if you look at Dropbox, nobody is sitting there spinning up another application VM manually. it all is triggered based on how much RAM or CPU is being utilized, and it spins up another application VM or database VM, right? So these modern sort of web scale applications or larger scale SaaS and mobile applications, these have different sort of requirements. And a key piece in that requirement is the APIs, right? The APIs that interact and help you consume infrastructure. These APIs are primary attraction behind OpenStack, right? That's why we are investing heavily in OpenStack, making sure you have an OpenStack way of consuming infrastructure. But broadly, if you look at the spectrum of our embracing and participating in open source projects, it's not just OpenStack, but also much more broader trends. For example, Docker from containerization so that you can take your applications and port it across different data centers. Spring, Hadoop, Cloud Foundry, these are various levels. Cloud Foundry provides you PaaS, Spring provides you with developer tools. So across the spectrum, we are trying to bring tools and products that will help you achieve this modern set of applications. Now, why do you need this modern set of applications? To tie it back to Scott's comment about business outcomes, right? If you look today, nobody's just sitting at the laptop and connecting to a particular service. Probably everyone has 2 or 3 devices, right? All of a sudden, the load on an application has gone 3x, 5x, 10x, right? So these applications need, by default, a scale-out model. They need to handle these additional devices that are connecting with them. So it's not a fancy thing that I just need to make a scale-out. It's a necessity because of the fragmentation of the devices that access it and just the explosion in the number of endpoints. So these SaaS applications or modern mobile applications, they just have this hyper need to consume the infrastructure much more programmatically and at a much larger scale.
How many of you guys have heard of that term, third platform? You've probably heard VMware use it a few times, right?
Yep.
It's used to refer to this emerging class of applications that are tailored at the mobile, and it'll sound like I'm throwing buzzwords out to you, but this is how we describe it, right? Mobile, big data, social, where there are billions of users and millions of applications. And so to reinforce what Arvind's saying here is the reason these frameworks become important is because applications actually functionally must have the ability to scale out or they will fall over, right? Yep. If you're a Twitter follower and you remember the famous Twitter fail whale, right? That was an example of one of these applications where you had millions of users and the application wasn't capable of scaling out until they went back and re-architected what they were doing, right? And that's why these frameworks are becoming more important. It's a shift in how applications are being developed. And either way, VMware software-defined data center vision and products allow you to consume those resources in the fashion that makes the most sense, whether it's traditional apps or the modern third platform apps.
Yeah, and it's not just these new social Twitter kind of applications. If you're a banking application, everybody is hitting your banking app from mobile applications, from iPad, from every web terminal that they can find, right? So the increase in load for that banking application is significant. If you're a pharma company, you are doing big data research, right? There are millions of data points coming from various patients that you have. You are bound to have to consume that data and write an application that can use that information. So it's not isolated to this new sort of consumer-centric Twitter or Netflix, but it is actually becoming a reality for a lot of industry segments that they need to develop these kind of applications to stay competitive, to deliver it to their consumers, and to add value to the consumers. So if that's the trend in the market, if that's the need, how does technology meet it? And in that, OpenStack is a piece in the puzzle, right? You still need the bottom software-defined data center so that you can operate the data center environment. But OpenStack is a nice conduit to consume that infrastructure. It's a nice channel to consume the infrastructure, right? So with respect to the OpenStack, our strategy, or with respect to, in general, most of these open source cloud technology enablers, our strategy is anchored on 3 pillars, right? These are open source, so everyone has to contribute. We have to, and it's not just contribute in making our drivers work with the open source product, but you also have to review other people's code. Well, it's a community effort, right? I just can't keep making my stuff and not review other people. They will not review mine then. So it's a very communal effort. We have to review other people's code, run large test frameworks to ensure the quality of changes is there. So we want to make sure that we do our part in contributing to the community, and we have been doing it for several years now. At the same time, we do want to make sure that all the differentiated value of VMware is preserved when you are consuming through OpenStack, right? You may say that, oh, I don't really care about HA in this modern application, But there are always a need of a database VM that you want to preserve, optionally have a HA flag turned on for that particular VM. DRS is still useful because you will get better density for your host infrastructure. Policy-based placement is useful because you will place the VMs or the storage depending on what kind of storage profile you want to use. So all these differentiated values that we are creating are equally relevant in OpenStack, and we want to make sure that we preserve them, right? But the first two are not going to be in use if we can't enable customers to deploy and consume and operate OpenStack in a simplified manner, right? I can talk all about our contributions, our differentiations, but if it takes several months and years for you to deploy OpenStack, operate OpenStack, what's the use? So the third enablement piece is really the crucial driver for us to announce our own distribution, VMware Integrated OpenStack. And that is really focused towards making everything simple, leverage your skills, existing skills of running the data center. So just to summarize, it's anchored around 3: contribute, differentiate, and enable the customers, right? So let's talk a little bit more about what is this OpenStack about? Like, let's zoom in more on OpenStack. What does it enable you? You already have a virtualized data center, probably have hypervisor, you probably have network virtualization solutions as well. So what is the disconnect? Why do we need OpenStack here? As I mentioned, the biggest value add from OpenStack is around the APIs, the developer-friendly APIs that OpenStack brings, and the sort of cloud-aware consumption of infrastructure. In OpenStack world, you can spin up a VM, then you can attach a disk later on, you can create private networks. It's all very flexible. It's all sort of discrete elements of compute, storage, network, right? And this kind of flexible API consumption is what OpenStack brings in. Once you create OpenStack infrastructure as a service cloud using all this virtual infrastructure, then the DevOps team can actually call the APIs, they can write scripts or use app management tools, and they can provision applications, scale up, scale down, write the auto-scale applications that you're familiar with. You can do code update using Puppet or Chef. You can do configurations within your applications. You can really enter into this DevOps paradigm of consuming infrastructure programmatically, right? Where is this needed again? This is primarily in new workloads that we see it. If you Google OpenStack Exchange deployments, you would probably not find anything in the first 100 pages of Google, right? Nobody's doing OpenStack for tier 1 workloads. It's just not, it's not geared for that. It's coming from the world of cloud applications, developing cloud applications, coming from the DevOps world. So this is where we see most of it: mobile, SaaS applications, e-commerce vendors, large-scale dev, CI environments. We use OpenStack APIs to test our own integration. We fire up the whole OpenStack environment. We bring it up using the OpenStack APIs, right? So that's a good example. Lots of batch processing, data analytics kind of use cases. As I mentioned, like the pharma company would be an example where you're taking a lot of data points and you're number crunching to come up with your next drug discovery and things like that. The key thing to note is it's not really being used for tier 1 workloads. It's coming from the cloud sort of development, DevOps kind of mindset, and that's where the APIs become important. That's where the real value add is for the business. So what does it take to build an OpenStack cloud, right? Well, what's the real technical sort of architecture behind it? Well, first of all, let's appreciate that there are two constituencies here, right? Two sorts of customer profiles. First of all, there is the cloud infrastructure team that's still responsible for providing the hardware. OpenStack or no OpenStack, it's not going to run on thin air, right? It needs your host, server, storage, network, everything. It needs the virtualization technologies on top of it. It needs a hypervisor to talk to, right? So you'd need the cloud infrastructure team to deliver that infrastructure piece. Then you need somebody to operate OpenStack itself. Most likely it's the IT or cloud infrastructure team that will operate OpenStack components as well. There's the consumer within the enterprise is your DevOps team, the team that's writing the application, that's writing the SaaS applications or doing CI, your developer groups, your DevOps teams, right? So you can look at it as there is the infrastructure operations team, the cloud infrastructure team, and there is the developer team, right? So you have choices underneath. OpenStack is a vendor-neutral framework. You have choices of what technologies you want to use in those question mark boxes, right? And VMware obviously has offerings, strong offerings, market-leading offerings in each one of these. So you can start with using OpenStack Compute with our vSphere. You can create VMs via OpenStack. They will go and land up on ESXi hosts. You can use NSX for networking APIs, right? NSX has full, complete L2 to L7 networking services. OpenStack does not come with an overlay technology or anything. It needs some SDN solution underneath for you to get your agile networking in place. And then you can use vSphere data stores, a large spectrum of SAN, NAS, virtual SAN. Every data store technology that you're aware of, you can use it with Cinder and Glance, the storage components of OpenStack. This gets you the foundation. This gets you the infrastructure for OpenStack going. You have the compute, the network, and the storage pieces, but it's not done yet. Somebody needs the tool. This infrastructure team needs tools to manage all these things, right? So you can use tools like VCOps, Log Insight, to actually monitor it, to parse the syslog server. I keep saying that you cannot run an OpenStack environment without any syslog server. That's just a recipe for failure, as we have learned ourselves. Every OpenStack service generates 5 or 6 logs. There are about dozens of logs. Your VM is not getting an IP. It's scattered across multiple logs, right? So your infrastructure team will need tools to operate the environment. And we have VCOps. We have extended it to have OpenStack intelligence. We have Log Insight that's extended to have OpenStack awareness and things like that. On the top end, we have tools like VCAC that can help you with the application lifecycle. So that falls in the category of consuming composite applications. You can fire them off on OpenStack endpoints. You can add additional policies. Hey, you cannot use expensive data stores because you're doing testing. Use NetApp or some other cheaper store, right? So as you can see, it requires quite a few pieces along in your private cloud, right? OpenStack by itself will provide you the APIs and services. It does not come with anything else, right? You get the APIs, you get the service, you can be productive, you can achieve your DevOps goals, but the cloud infrastructure team should be able to operate this stack. So that's why they need tools, they need products that they're familiar with.
And I think this is an important point for those of you who may be struggling within your organization. If you're hearing well, we're going to take out all of our VMware and put in OpenStack sort of discussion, right? The reality is that OpenStack itself is this orchestration framework. You still need a hypervisor, you still need networking software, you still need a storage platform, you still need management tools, you may need additional orchestration on top of that, right? And so VMware as a whole, right, and OpenStack, they're complementary. They're not competitive. So having somebody say, well, I'm going to rip out my VMware and put in OpenStack is kind of silly because, you know, there are all these pieces. You guys can see how VMware's suite of technologies in all these different areas are very complementary, filling in spaces where OpenStack itself does not provide those services.
So just to summarize on the strategy piece, then we'll go deeper into each one of these sections. We want to give customer the complete advantage of OpenStack APIs, right? You get the APIs. At the same time, the cloud infrastructure team, the DevOps team, you guys should be able to operate the data center. You guys should be able to leverage your existing expertise that you yourself have built over time to actually deliver OpenStack and operate the underlying infrastructure, monitor the OpenStack component itself, right? So what's our goal? What's our next step? Since we have done the integrations, we have announced the distribution, we want to make it really simple and operationally actually real for you to roll out OpenStack in production with complete confidence. You should not have the question, OK, I'm ready to roll it out, but how do I upgrade it? Well, I don't have a strategy for that. So we are working on figuring out how to get you from version X of OpenStack to X+1, right? How do I patch something? Some security breach happens, shell shock, heartbleed. Things happen, there are a lot of security breaches. How do you get patches? Who should you call for support? So it will be VMware support for everything from top to bottom, including OpenStack components. Something goes wrong in Nova, something is not working right, call 1-800-VMware, right? So we want to make sure that it becomes real, it becomes ready for your production. You can go into production with confidence while preserving all the OpenStack goodness, the same APIs that you can write your applications against. So going back to our strategy, how will we achieve it? We have already done the contributions. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. We'll show you how the differentiation is coming up in OpenStack, how we are preserving all the values, and then we'll talk about the VMware Integrated OpenStack as more of a next phase in enabling the customers. Right? So it's not that we started yesterday, right? It's taken quite a significant time for us to build this community influence, to build our community presence, and it started long before even VMware was directly involved. Nicira was early founder of OpenSwitch. They defined the entire Neutron project, what API should be there in the networking service, how should the networking service of OpenStack look like. So they were sort of the precursor for VMware's involvement. Around 2012 timeframe, when we acquired Nicira, we also became the gold member. We announced the NSX plugin for Neutron. Since then, we have essentially just marched on, expanded from networking into the compute and the storage. So the three pillars of your data center, compute, network, storage, they can all function with OpenStack environment, right? But at the same time, we have also expanded into distribution partners. I mean, we would love for everything to be owned by VMware, but that's not the reality. Building a data center, large-scale private cloud is a significant effort that involves other vendors. So we have expanded our ecosystem with partners such as Canonical, Mirantis. These were the early partners who supported vSphere and NSX in their distribution. Since then, we continue to expand more in adding support for other OpenStack projects, Glance, Kilometer, and at the same time, we have expanded to more distribution partners. Recently, this morning, I was reading a blog by IBM that they have thrown away their own homemade vCenter driver for our official vCenter driver. So that could count as yet another distributor with support for vSphere at least, right? The idea here is that this ecosystem is very important. This will help us give customers the choice of how they want to build their OpenStack. There are some things which VMware can support, something which these guys can support. So it's very, very important for us to have the ecosystem support. And then we have also announced our own distribution, which is much more optimized for a shop that is running complete VMware products. So if you have vSphere and NSX, and if you want to roll out OpenStack, you can directly use our own distribution. You don't have to create support complications of engaging multiple parties, right? So it's a perfect natural step for us to go from our contributions, take everything, roll it up into a package, and distribute to our customers. That's the next natural step. And I didn't just make the fancy slide going that way. There's numbers behind it. We were the top 5. Actually, we were number 4 contributor for Icehouse. We have been in top 10 contributor since we joined, I think, leading with Neutron and then expanding into Nova, Cinder, and many other projects by now. These lines of code and reviews, as I said, it's a community effort. It's not just us pushing our code upstream. We review other people's code. We test. We run large CI environments to listen to all the Nova Neutron changes and approve them, gate them, mark them as failed. So there's a lot of effort that goes into a community software, and VMware has put the money and the resources behind it to make sure that customers have the choice to use OpenStack reliably. Right. And to add to that, I think we need to shift this. Yeah, I think Alt-Tab to the.
Ready?
Yeah. I think we can make it full screen.
OpenStack Foundation is a nonprofit that is just turned 2 years old, and we are focused on coordinating the efforts of our community of developers and companies and users all around the world who help to really drive innovation in the cloud. VMware has been an innovator in virtualization and this kind of next wave of infrastructure management for well over a decade. And they've been able to spot trends early a number of times. They have helped to drive OpenStack. Specifically, the OpenStack networking project, which is codenamed Neutron, was started by some engineers from a company at Nicira. VMware acquired Nicira, and those engineers have continued to contribute heavily to OpenStack networking and push it forward. And many of our most successful users are still making use of that technology.
But I think it's equally important when you see the resources they're putting into it that are really bringing the smartest people in the industry in their area of expertise in the compute realm around hypervisors,
We have more than 30 engineers dedicated to the OpenStack effort at VMware across 7 core projects. We're deeply engaged. As a matter of fact, we have been ranked the #4 contributor in the latest Icehouse release in OpenStack.
VMware was one of the first gold members of the OpenStack Foundation. Before that, they had team members that were contributing to multiple OpenStack projects. They've been involved for years and have shown their commitment through their sponsorship of the foundation, through their code contributions, through their community involvement.
I'm a core contributor to OpenStack, so what that means is I help review a lot of the code that's coming in and help form a direction for which area we want to take the project.
At the end of the day, the companies make the investments, but their investments are really in the people. It's in hiring developers, it's hiring developers who are willing to contribute, it's in helping users be successful with OpenStack. And so those are all the things that we look for in, in the companies that are backing OpenStack, and that's just really critical to see. And it's really about looking at the bigger picture, looking at the industry, driving cloud adoption forward, and that's the thing that VMware is helping to contribute to, and so we're very grateful for that.
So there is a great synergy, as you heard Jonathan and Mark talk about, right? We interact with them very closely. There is a great synergy in bringing VMware's talent and experience and enabling OpenStack to actually deliver and be real in enterprise, right? Because OpenStack started very nascently, and when you do a community effort, there is usually a lot of gaps that you miss. Like, for example, what's the operating model? How do you monitor all these services? How do you do log analysis of all the logs that you're creating, right? Who defines the architecture for these different distributed systems? So there is a lot of value and a lot of synergy that VMware is bringing along with other OpenStack community members and OpenStack Foundation itself, right? So it's a great, healthy synergy. And in the end, the winner is the customer. You get another channel to consume your infrastructure, to build innovative applications, meet your business demands, right? So that's a driving factor, and it's really a good synergy for the customer as well as OpenStack and VMware. So I think I'm going to let Scott take you through the differentiation and enablement pieces. All right, Scott.
All right, thanks. So, Arvind has shared with you kind of the 3 pillars upon which we are embracing a lot of the open source projects, including OpenStack. And he talked about our involvement, and you saw the quotes from leading members of the OpenStack Foundation. But let's just talk a minute about how we are attempting to differentiate our service offerings in this space versus some of the others. As we pointed out, OpenStack gives you the ability to plug in a lot of different pieces. So there's lots of questions that you have to ask. Questions, what is the best technology choice that I'm going to make to plug into OpenStack for, infrastructure and application service level agreements, for security, for reliability, for scalability, for total cost of ownership, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because you have to evaluate all these things. Again, OpenStack itself provides you the framework by which to do the infrastructure orchestration, but it does not provide some of that functionality in many of these cases by itself. It relies on integration with an external product or project. So what we are attempting to do here is allow you to leverage the best of breed components. So the stuff that we do on the hypervisor side to make VMware vSphere what we feel is a world-class hypervisor, best in the market. Same goes for NSX, same goes for vSAN. To be able to integrate these things into OpenStack to help you achieve those business goals we were talking about earlier, which is the whole reason why you're looking at this, right? Is it a matter of reducing CapEx? Is it a matter of reducing OpEx? Is it a matter of enabling faster time to market because you're increasing developer agility, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm just going to go ahead and build these out real quick. So if you look at how we have taken and done some of these integrations, these are just some snapshots, right? Around Nova Compute, we have direct integration between the Nova Compute project, which is handling the compute side of the house, and vSphere, which allows you to bring in vSphere as a hypervisor inside OpenStack. So when you schedule instances or VMs, they will be scheduled directly onto vSphere clusters underneath, which allows you to take advantage of all of the features and functionality that vSphere offers. Same goes for NSX, integrating directly into Neutron, right? So bringing to market advanced security, advanced multi-tenancy support, very, very respectable and leading numbers with regards to scale and throughput, integration with third-party providers. I mean, NSX is just an absolute leader here in providing the kind of cloud networking services that are really necessary to build an OpenStack cloud of any size or scale. And then you look at our storage technologies, right? I was talking with a customer earlier today, and he was talking about, well, I want to do this or that or the other, and I'll bring them in. And I'm like, the problem is that if you want to do Cinder integration directly into your storage array, you have to rely on your vendor to give you the Cinder driver, the Cinder plugin. One of the benefits of being able to leverage all the work that VMware has done for years on the storage side is that now you can take advantage of any product that's on the HCL with regards to storage, right? So I can bring in a storage array that's fiber channel. I can bring in a storage array that's fiber channel over Ethernet or iSCSI or NFS file systems, and I can leverage all the work that VMware's done on the storage stack immediately with services like Glance for image storage and Cinder for persistent block volumes. Now, real quick, we did some comparisons. The full report is available down here. You see the URL at the bottom. Some comparisons of a workload between running VMware vSphere with Virtual SAN, both these in the OpenStack environment with Red Hat, KVM, GlusterFS, right? We did some performance comparisons, and we were using Cassandra, which is one of these next-gen workloads that's often used it's a database. It's often used to power these applications that we see common in the third platform, all right? And so what we saw out of that, we did a number of measurements here, right? Operations per second, comparing vSphere with Virtual SAN against Rail on storage server. We saw improvements in performance there, improvements in IOPS per second there, and notably, right here, this is one of the things that I think is really interesting because people, they often will say, oh, well, KVM's free. And we have the saying in the States, and maybe it works well here in Europe as well. It's just no such thing as a free lunch. There's always some sort of cost to you, right? Whatever that cost may be. And so when we looked at the total cost of ownership for both these solutions over the course of 3 years, even including licensing for vSphere and the related technologies, the VMware solution, here we're actually talking about the Virtual SAN piece as opposed to Red Hat Storage Server, still came out cheaper over the course of a 3-year total cost of ownership study. So when you kind of boil these down to the numbers, because the marketing folks like to boil it down to numbers, right? Then you see we're faster and cheaper. Can't get any better than that, right? All right, so then the other thing that too is in terms of differentiation is being able to leverage your existing skill sets, right? You guys are all, or majority of you probably all are vSphere admins. You've built your careers working with vSphere. You have invested time and effort. You know that kind of stuff. Being able to leverage VMware's products underneath OpenStack means that your organizations aren't going to have to spend time and money having to go back and relearn an entirely new skill set, right? Look, guys, I have spent the last 2 years transitioning from being a vSphere admin to managing KVM, and it's not a walk in the park, right? Anybody out there managing KVM on a regular basis of any scale, right? And you compare managing into vSphere. Yes, they each have their warts. I'm not going to say one product is perfect versus the other, right? But it's a very different sort of thing. It's a very different skill set. And you have to recognize that the cost that it takes to come up to speed in that skill set is a cost that has to be factored into when you're doing something like this, right? So being able to leverage existing infrastructure, right? Same storage platforms, all of that stuff that's already there, being able to leverage existing skills and expertise, being able to leverage existing tools, right? The existing management tools that can monitor your vSphere environment will continue to monitor your vSphere environment even if you're consuming that infrastructure via OpenStack, right? Remember that when you look at OpenStack, there's two sides to this coin, right? There's the consumer view, where they don't need to know what's going on underneath the covers, right? When you present the OpenStack portal or the OpenStack APIs to these people who are going to be consuming it, to your application developers, they don't need to know what hypervisor it's running on or what storage it's on, what network it's connected to. They don't need to know any of that, right? But somebody needs to know that. Now, if you're the admin, the operator of that network, that means you need to know that. So you can't rely on OpenStack tools alone. Like the Horizon dashboard isn't going to tell you if one of your hypervisors is running hot. And when I mean hot, meaning busy, right? I mean, it might be temperature hot too, but that's a different story. Either way, the dashboard's not going to tell you that. So you need an existing set of management and monitoring tools to help you manage the infrastructure that's providing this self-service portal out to your users. All right, Arvind, you want to take over here?
Yeah, sure.
All right, awesome.
You can grab a water.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, so as I said, the first two pieces are useless if you can't run it yourself in your own environment. So if you can't enable the customers, the first two, we can throw them out of the window, right? So it's all about enablement. How do we enable the customers to actually operate this fairly complex distributed control plane that is OpenStack, right? First of all, let's just appreciate the fact that running any kind of cloud with OpenStack, without OpenStack, it's a complicated beast. All of these things are needed in running a cloud. This is coming not from us, but also from other leading adopters of OpenStack or other leading sort of front-running customers who have run a large-scale cloud operations. As you can see, infra onboarding. Of course, you need to add capacity when you run out, when you have to add hosts, clusters, onboard them, upgrades, patches, security patches, right? Monitoring, troubleshooting. As I said, there are dozens of logs that will be generated. So nothing here is out of ordinary. You would have experienced some of this in your any scale of vCenter environment or vSphere environment. This just gets blown up when you have larger scale or when you add storage and networking and make it completely software defined, right? So this is one of the key things to understand with OpenStack is OpenStack is just a piece in the cloud. It's not going to solve all of these problems or make them vanish. In fact, they're all present in OpenStack environments as well. So you need, I mean, these things will cost time and money and tools, right? So you need tools and you need a skill set. So the question is, how much does it cost to run such a thing? Is it really free? Can just a couple of developers go and install it and be done? Everything is good. You have a OpenStack IaaS cloud? Well, not really. This was a study done by Innovance, and the salary information were pulled in from the Indeed.com, which is a job posting site. As you can see, it's not really free or cheap, right? It takes quite a bit of tooling, expertise to operate it. There is an ongoing cost. There might be some initial cost to stand up as well, but the bigger cost is really ongoing. Because OpenStack is a piece, you need still all the software-defined data center infrastructure and management pieces on top of it, right? So let's just get that myth out of the way that OpenStack will run and operate itself magically. It will need tools, skills, people, and expertise involved there. So our approach for VMware Integrated OpenStack, which is our distribution, is based on, again, a couple of guiding principles. We want to make it fast and simple, but how do we achieve it is based on your familiarity, your expertise with running VMware products, right? So for example, in our distribution, when you install OpenStack, rather than going to a separate Fuel or PackStack or another tool, you go to vSphere Web Client, you download an OVF, you go through few UI-guided steps, and rest we will create the complete OpenStack environment, including any memcache, load balancer, databases, anything that OpenStack needs to run in production, we will automatically create all those. We will install monitoring agents in each one of those VMs so that VCOps can automatically monitor those VMs, right? You don't have to run additional tools to install agents in these VMs to monitor them. We'll do it out of the box, right? So that's the goal with respect to VMware Integrated OpenStack. So how does it work? You go, as I said, you go to your existing vSphere environment. You start with your vSphere Web Client, right? Go to the Web Client, install OVF. You will get a plugin registered over there. You can see the small mark over here. So it's just like other plugins that you have in your vSphere environment. Once you go there, you can start deploying OpenStack, right? Once the OpenStack deployment is done, as I said, we will have agents installed in there so that VCOps can monitor. VCOps can actually monitor the Python process, the Nova, Cinder, the Python process, the operating system, the virtual machine that's running that operating system, the underlying hypervisor, and the hardware. So you get a unified tool from all the way from a simple process inside an operating system all the way down to the hardware, right? So that's a powerful operating tool for you to have when you're running an OpenStack environment. There are about 15, 16 VMs that get created in a production-grade OpenStack deployment. The key thing here is to note that this is complete life cycle of OpenStack or any particular cloud, right? You start with the deployment, you start with some configuration of the cloud, then you have to monitor it, troubleshoot it. We also have code in this web client plugin that will help you change the configuration without any hassle, right? So you don't have to worry about, okay, I need to add a cluster. What should I do? Well, go to nova.conf, line number 75, add this parameter, and modify these 5 things. No. You go to the vSphere web client, select the cluster, select the data stores that you want to add, finish it. We will do the configuration change behind the scenes, and be done. Why is this so important? Because the previous process is manual and error prone, and if you do an error in configuration, your cloud is not going to function, right? So where does this add simplicity? It is removing all these errors. Oh, wait, I added the wrong cluster name. That was not right. We'll check all those things when you are adding the cluster. This cluster is already added. This cluster is full. This cluster does not have connectivity. We will do all those checks before we add it to the OpenStack environment, right? All these things sound trivial. You can do it in the nova.conf file as well. But these are error prone. They create hassles, they sink time and resources of your cloud operators. So we are trying to make it simple and operationally easy, right? So there is an additional aspect of this is this architecture that we deploy out of the box is validated. We actually run a pretty large scale OpenStack deployment ourselves based on the same architecture. So it's a validated architecture. We know what the performance of each one of these components will be. We have sized them for 1,000 to 2,000 VMs out of the box. So within about 30 to 40 minutes, you will have a production-grade OpenStack deployment running, which is good for 1,000 to 2,000 VMs. That's a pretty sizable OpenStack deployment. You would probably beat most of the people who have been trying OpenStack for 2-3 years, right? You will leap ahead of them. Another thing which gets missed is the single support, right? If you deploy OpenStack, who is going to support the Nova, who is going to patch, you can call VMware, we'll upgrade and we'll patch it, right? We'll even provide tools to automatically patch and upgrade these systems. So single point of support across all, from OpenStack, hypervisor, network virtualization, storage, everything is 1-800 VMware single support. Reduces hassles and saves you a lot of time. So what's the value prop over other distributions, potentially? You get to use best of the breed technologies that you're familiar with. You can leverage your existing expertise, all the tools that you have written, Power CLI, scripts, and everything for onboarding, ESX. All of those things are relevant. It's the same operational skills, right? Single support saves you a lot of time. But again, what's the IT outcome? You're not sinking a lot of time and money just getting OpenStack running. You actually have OpenStack running. You're starting to extract value out of that OpenStack. Your developers can start writing applications. They will probably be portable applications, compatible with other OpenStack clouds. You can move them around. If you are a business that's trying to launch the same application in, let's say, another geography, you can go to an OpenStack provider there, take the application that you have written against OpenStack APIs, and deploy it over there. Most likely, it will work with minor modifications. We are already taking you to your business value with OpenStack. Let's just start consuming OpenStack, deliver the value to your company, right? But there is also other ways of consuming OpenStack. You just don't have to use our distribution to use VMware products underneath OpenStack. So this is showing 2 different approaches to OpenStack. On my left side is the tightly integrated product, which is what our distribution is. And on the right-hand side is the loosely integrated framework where you can go download the OpenStack code from the community. You can pick and choose different products that you want to use. It's a vendor-neutral framework, right? So we can call one side the loosely integrated, the other one tightly integrated, right? Our distribution works on our set of products, so it's a tightly integrated, right? It's all blue over there. Now, there is some benefits and some trade-offs, right? First of all, you get the same APIs. So same OpenStack APIs, same services. If you write an application, in both cases, it will be the same way you will write and consume the infrastructure. You get the same top level value proposition. But the bottom level, there is a lot of pros and cons, right? On the one where you have mixed colors, mixed products, is a lot of flexibility. You can pick and choose your hypervisor, your network solution, your own tools, right? But it's going to be very complex to build and support and maintain. So no surprise, right? The flip side of the coin, flexibility, supportability, and complexity comes along with it. Other side, we will have limited configurations in our product. Where you will have limited product choices. Of course, there's VMware, vSphere, and NSX. But you will have proven standard architecture, tested versions of the products, fully supported by VMware. And of course, we'll provide you all the consulting and help that's needed to get it up and running, right? What's the benefit over there? Single support, it's just faster time to value, less complicated to build and support. But either way, you can think of this as a spectrum of where it brings value to your company, right? And you can use VMware in either scenarios, right? And how do we enable that? As I said, that's where the ecosystem comes in very strongly. We have limited set of products that we can support, but these other vendors support more products in their distribution. So we work with them very closely. If a customer says, I want to use X, Y, Z, and your vSphere and your NSX in that combination, we work with these vendors to make sure that the customer has the choice and they can do it in a guided, well-informed manner, right? But the trade-offs still remain. The complexity does not go away, but there is help available to help you address if you want to build different sort of product-based OpenStack cloud, right? So what's coming ahead? We'll continue to release OpenStack. There is 6 monthly release in OpenStack. There's a lot of new features that come in. We'll continue to release and follow closely with OpenStack releases. We continue to innovate in VMware. 6.0 is coming right around the corner. It has dozens of features. We are looking at things like vWalls, policy-based management, virtual data center. How can all of these fit into OpenStack, and where does it make sense to bring those features up into OpenStack, right? And then we'll continue to expand. We just did the distribution partners. There is a lot of technology partners, everybody from load balancer service to object storage service. Everything is relevant in an OpenStack environment as well. So VMware has a very strong ecosystem. We want to bring these technology partners, this storage, and these networking partners into the OpenStack framework, make sure that their product, their technologies can add value to OpenStack as well, right? So I wanted to talk a little bit about who's using OpenStack today, right? So I did all our side of the story. What kind of customers are using OpenStack? So this goes back to, again, the use cases. CSC is a great use case where they are partnering with us to deliver this OpenStack services to their consumers as well. They are planning to first internally use OpenStack. This was announced recently at VMworld Barcelona. MIT is a great example of very strong business use case, right? MIT is trying to build this next generation of self-service online education portal. All of that content is going to reside in the back. So it's a SaaS service that they are trying to build with OpenStack in the back, right? So it's a great example of a SaaS technology that's using this. TradeStation is a foreign exchange trading platform. They are also a SaaS service. They are starting to use it for both building the SaaS applications, but right now they're starting with dev and CI. How do we test those SaaS applications in-house? So the trifecta of your service provider who's providing it to other customers, SaaS services, CI and dev test automation, they're all using based on vSphere and NSX in their environments.
That's the demo.
At this point, was it supposed to be?
That's the demo.
Ah, did it run? Does not look like. We'll just do a short demo of the product itself. This thing cooperates and plays. Yeah. You want to talk through that?
That's fine. So hold on, let me reset this thing to start at the beginning for you. All right, so what you're going to see here, just real quick, and this is not a super deep demo, but highlights of what's going on where you deploy the OpenStack Manager, which is a single OVF. That in turn gives you this wizard to deploy the rest of OpenStack, right, which asks you a lot of questions, gets the full details of it. Gives you the option to allocate resources, gives you the option to decide where you're going to store resources here. For example, they're storing it on a vSAN data store, and then also another data store. Gives you the full piece. Once you click finish, it'll automatically spin up all the VMs that are needed. So it spins up a total of, I think, either 12 or 14 VMs, which includes redundant controllers, all that kind of jazz. Here, you're given a fully production-grade OpenStack. So this is Horizon, the OpenStack dashboard. And you can go in and create, this is with being used in conjunction with NSX, or creating logical networks on the fly, spinning up instances. So you're going to consume it in the exact same way you would consume any OpenStack installation. Here you can see an example of a 3-tier topology that we instantiated using NSX behind OpenStack, right? Here's an example screenshot of the NSX manager showing you logical switches and also our end-to-end connectivity tests. Simple wizards for deploying additional compute capacity. Integration directly, as Arvind mentioned, into the management tools. So being able to see per tenant health and resources allocated to a tenant. So again, from an operator's perspective, you need to be able to see that stuff. Here's integration into vCenter Log Insight, showing you graphs, network growth over time, API response times. This is doing some traceback searches inside Log Insight. So again, seeing content pack integration with Log Insight, so it has full awareness. Doing management pack integration into VC Ops, so it has full awareness of service level, availability, and status, and all the rest of it as well. So, all right. So who would like to learn more about VIO? All right. Well, then we have just the answer for you. Unfortunately, they scheduled us on the very last day, so the hands-on lab might already be closed if it's not.
It will be available in like 10 days online.
Yeah. So it'll be available, not here, just here from Hands-on Labs. So you can get Hands-on Labs once you go home. So there is a Hands-on Lab available. We have an OpenStack community on the VMware Communities website. So if you guys aren't communities members, I encourage you to go sign up, become a communities member. You can go there. And if you are a company that would be interested in testing the beta, this guy right here is one of the PMs. So he can give you more information, but there's a URL there where you can go and visit and request access to the private beta that's currently going on, or I'm sorry, I'm in Europe, the beta that's going on here with our VMware Integrated OpenStack offering.
Yeah. So this is arranged in the, so if you don't have any environment, then you can use Hands-on Lab. All you need is a browser. If you have a small environment, a small vCenter, then you can use our single appliance, which we call VOVA. It's not a nice name, but yeah, you can use that to try it in a smaller environment. But if you want to try a full production, how does it look like in a production, then I would really encourage you to try out the beta. It requires a little bit more resources, like 3-4 hosts, because it will deploy full production OpenStack. But the fastest I've done OpenStack deployment is in 15 minutes, where a customer had SSDs in their host. That was actually a big surprise to me. I'm used to doing it in 40-45 minutes, but 15 minutes complete 1,000 VM out of the box ready OpenStack deployment on vSphere and NSX. Yep.
It's pretty cool. All right. So that concludes our presentation, but we are happy to take any questions. So if you guys have questions, just raise your hand. We've got a couple of folks that are ready with mics who will run over and give you a mic. We got a question up here. And after him, who else has a question so we can get the next guy on his way? No? Okay. For now, we'll start here then. Go ahead, sir.
So, hi. So I had a question regarding the provisioning or the elasticity piece of the cloud, right? I saw the OpenStack presentation, the implementation VMware did, and what I'm not seeing is the instantiation or provisioning or bootstrapping of the ESX resources. So what's the intention of VMware on this field? How the VMware intends to influence the development of the OpenStack? So are there any plans? I saw today an EvoRail presentation and how they neatly actually did this bootstrapping for ESX resources. So what are the plans over there?
So I'll answer that, and I'll let Arvind jump in if he wants. First of all, we can't comment on future plans because this is not an NDA discussion. But you can, for example, you can leverage existing mechanisms that you use to deploy vSphere today, right? So if you're looking at auto deploy or any other mechanism to deploy vSphere capacity, those will work just fine with VMware Integrated OpenStack, because at the point OpenStack is ready to consume it is the point when it's already up and running. So whether it was vSphere or whether it was KVM on Linux, either way, you would need a mechanism for deploying that bare metal mechanism, right? So whether it be auto deploy, whether it be Pixie boot and something else, you can use whatever mechanisms you want to roll out vSphere, right? And then we can consume it via VMware Integrated OpenStack. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, just once you have onboarded it, however, following whatever mechanism you do, it's very easy to add it to OpenStack for consumption. If it's just a host, you just add it to any of the clusters. It will automatically adjust to the capacity. If it's a brand new cluster of hosts, then you can use the workflow that we showed briefly, that just go to the UI, add the cluster, we'll consume it, start consuming it, right?
Okay. Does that help?
And future, it more simple with Evo.
Okay. See me afterwards if you have more questions. What else? Yep. What other questions can we answer for you? Right here.
Hi. My question's about NSX. So you talked about NSX in this presentation. So is that the NSX multi-hypervisor edition that relates to the OpenStack deployment?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. So going forward, how will NSX-V and NSX-MH work in this sort of scenario? Will they eventually become one?
Well, again, we can't comment on future plans because that would be an NDA discussion. We are going to continue to innovate in terms of integration between OpenStack and NSX in a variety of ways. So you can expect to see continued innovation and integrations across the platform.
Okay, yeah. So currently the partner integrations aren't available in this edition because it's MH and you only get that.
It depends on the partner. There are partner integrations in MH, so it would depend on the partner and the specific integration.
Switching VTech vendors, correct, or is that more security?
So it's currently in beta. Final components that will be included integrated will be determined as we go to GA.
Okay,
it's not going to be a major change because these are usually integrated as a driver. So if we enable NSX-V, for example, in some future, then we just change the driver. Architecture remains pretty much the same.
Yep. All right, next question.
Hello. We are speaking here mainly about cloud services, right? And the APIs are, from my understanding, really sensitive part. And if I'm thinking on today's security aspect with Snowden and such things, is there any benefit to use OpenStack? The same shit we are.
Right. So, Arvind, I'll let you comment on that if you want. OpenStack is not going to make you inherently more secure or inherently less secure. It is just a technology tool, and the security of the environment and the applications on it will be determined largely by the organization developing and deploying those applications.
Yeah, there isn't any. If anything, security still needs to bake a little bit more in OpenStack. There is room for a lot of improvement in the security areas in OpenStack in general. But as Scott mentioned, there's nothing more, nothing less. Same threats still exist.
All right, great question. Next question.
Do you guys like what you see? Is it in line with what you're thinking? Any feedback? Yeah? Yes? No?
Does this look like something that would be useful to you guys? Yeah.
Potentially? Okay.
All right. Well, great. Thanks for your time. Enjoy the rest of the conference, what little is left.
Thank you.